Welcome, and today I just wanted to share this little email that was sent to me, and it was showing this Wuppertal suspension railway in Germany, a pretty amazing rail system that snakes around a river right through the center of town, and absolutely amazing. It's one of a kind. And there'd really be no reason to build a suspended train unless you were short on space, as were they in this case. And you can see the supports just slamming into the edge of the river and the sides of these buildings, and just absolutely mind-blowing. And this was built in, I believe, 1893. And here we can get a little look at the silly narrative. This whole rail system that you can see here, traveling about 13 kilometers in this city of Wuppertal. Forgive me, that's probably not the correct pronunciation, but nevertheless, this whole railway being constructed in 6 years. 1897 to 1903. In fact, even less. The first track opened in 1901. So 4 to 6 years to construct this, winding through the whole city. Absolutely mind-blowing. Feat of engineering for the time, and something that was never again replicated, perhaps at some theme parks, but never on this scale. And forget about the little train. I mean, the train is the smallest part of this major accomplishment. I mean, to build this structure winding through an entire city really makes no sense for this time period, especially given the history. The history begins in 1824, and this man talks about building the first railway system, on which the carriages would be drawn by horses, and he tries to attract support, and nobody's interested. And now in 1826, they try again, it fails, and in 1887, plans are rehashed. They decide to run it over the river, and with no hiccups, by 1901, the railway came into operation. So very silly, not even taking gradual steps, just jumping straight to the most advanced railway system that I've ever seen in such an early time period. And here again, just a little peek, and surely this picture is not real, but very interesting. I need no more convincing that the further back we go, the more advanced this older civilization was, clearly wiped out and leaving behind a world of infrastructure and architecture and overall ways of living that we are still not replicating today. And at this point, I just enjoy looking into this past civilization, like some anthropologist studying a people from a somewhat removed vantage point. Do I think I need to solve something or reach some grand conclusion? I don't think so. I'm content with my understanding, and have no doubt that it will progress and develop into a much deeper awareness. Some may say there's more important issues, and that looking at the past is a waste of time and a distraction. And it may be for you, but for me, it's both fascinating and recreational at the same time. The closest I get to a vacation and time travel. And here was a comment sent to me by Mr. Kidd. My grandmother told me when I was young that when she was a young adult there were electric trolleys that worked good and were cheap to ride. Between our town and the next, about 6 miles. I was curious because there was no trace of this trolley, only a 4-lane highway between the two towns. Turns out an oil company and an automotive tire company working together bought and dismantled many of these trolleys across the U.S. They were only sued for monopoly once, in Chicago, but were only fined a few $1,000s. The dismantling of the trolleys were over 100 years ago. And very interesting and thought-provoking comment, and very true. It was in the interest of the automotive companies and big oil to not only get rid of the trolleys, but all of our understanding of this antique tech. And my first little coffee and crepe shop, when I was about 20 years old, was in a mall, and this mall was called the Trolley Square Mall, and it was an old trolley station, very beautiful and ornate, and made no sense to me at the time how this, in older times, could have been a bustling trolley station, really seeming more advanced to me in the year of 1999. They just barely installed a light railway through the city, but to think that there was a lapse of 100 years before they would get this or something similar functioning again. And I was just going to do a segment, and it was all about this pavement lighting. And it's funny how sometimes when an idea is bubbling up, it begins coming in from all directions. And we have a message from Joe Conrad pointing me to this very link that I have open right here. And I was feeling a little bit lazy. Wasn't sure if I wanted to hit screen record, but here we are. Pavement lighting, also known as vault lights, floor lights, and sidewalk prisms, are flat-top walk-on skylights, usually set into pavement or floors to let sunlight into the space below. They often use lighting prisms to throw the light sideways under the building. They were developed in the 19th century but declined in popularity with the advent of cheap electric lighting. Older cities and small centers around the world have or have had pavement lights. Most such lights are approximately a century old, although lights are being installed in some new construction. So here we get a little idea of what we're talking about, and you see the person stepping on the lighted sidewalk. And not only did it cast a beautiful light into the underground portion, but if somebody was inhabiting the underground portion, it would cast a beautiful light upwards, lighting up the sidewalks at night. And what was really fascinating about this recent discovery of our past is that it highlights something pertinent in our own research on the mud flood. And these become telltale signs that you are dealing with a city built on top of a city, as we can see in this picture. Very fascinating. I'm going to try to keep this super short. I just wanted to point out that if you see these on the floor, you're definitely dealing with an underground chamber and the original level of the building. And very, very fascinating. But here you go. Everything is available. They are not hiding these prism lights, although they are covering them up with concrete. And here's a look at cities all throughout our realm that have these vault lights. And it's only natural to assume that these are all mud flood affected cities, just based on this afterthought. And the article was very fascinating. It talked about how this was a solution for flooding. And here I was going to take a look at a few comments. This one was left by Moneypenny, and she was adding to the theory that many golf courses could simply be cover-ups for ancient civilizations, or maybe not that ancient at all. And the military, the US military, operates apparently thousands of golf courses, 2,874 to be precise, worldwide. And here's a little look, just scratching the surface. Nearly all the golf courses are on US bases. They're quite expensive to run. A typical golf course could cost $384,000 to a little over $500,000 a year in maintenance fees. And really lending to this notion, not only are they cover-ups, but they are covered up by the military themselves. And here's a little list. The Pentagon is spending $14 million a year to maintain these 300 golf courses. Here we go. In Alabama, we have 3. Alaska, every single state, as you can see here. And I think with our understanding, when we now see a list like this, we have a list of ancient sites. And I'm sure if we poked around all of these golf courses, we would find that there is much more to be revealed. And this is an excellent lead. Thank you, Moneypenny. I'm really excited to go through these. And here we go. Just a nice list for us to dissect. Okay, and that last little bit was successful, but super short. I'm going to go for another quick little burst. So I wanted to show you St. Louis water towers. And I've always found these really fascinating. These amazing water towers scattered all over the place, looking like old ruins. And let's have a little peek at this one. And here we go. Very rundown brick and a little glitch. I should just take the sign that I'm getting and avoid making a video tonight. Sometimes the energies are against us for whatever reason. Let's have a look at this water tower. The Bissell Street Water Tower. This looks like a beauty, and we would like to face it. Really amazing neighborhoods too, just completely run down. And in fact, I was watching a video, and that's what led me to this. And the video was showing all of these neighborhoods, and they're selling homes for $1. $1. And as you can see, my computer is being absolutely glitchy. It's not going to let us look at this water tower. We go into some kind of a vortex. So forgive me, I'm gonna have to simply cut all of this video making short. I may have to clean my computer up. It's an absolute mess, as usual. I'll probably need to delete a whole bunch of stuff. And let me just show you this ice castle in China. And lots of amazing ice sculptures. I may attribute this to the Siberian winds that allow the northern part of China to be cold enough to accomplish this. Here's another little look. Just super intricate. Ice or stone. Impressive either way. And here I wish I didn't have to say anything and just show you this film. But I can't show you this film. It looks like it's owned by Getty Images, originally for educational purposes, ABC News of New York, all rights reserved. And it's mind-blowing. I think it belongs to everybody. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to look at this film, but I think that I'll just show you a few little parts of it, and we won't play it. Maybe that's acceptable, maybe not. And really, this is the Bronx, 1982, and in complete ruins, in complete disrepair, looking like a bomb struck the place. And looking like a lot of these pictures in the early 1900s. I mean, like nothing changed. Like they took photographs in the 1900s and everything looks the same in the 80s. And just mind-blowing brickwork and just a whole city built out and demolished, and people's stories that they were telling about the whole living in the Bronx in the 80s is just amazing. They all said it was just crazy. They just walked around in rubble, and that was a normal thing. And here we get a little peek at really just this mostly abandoned part of town. And while everybody's focusing on New York City, you have these cities on the outskirts that are in complete disrepair and clearly old world architecture. And I encourage you to have a little look at these. Forgive me, not only can I not show you the film, but I have really slow, ridiculous internet at home. The signal doesn't seem to penetrate, and maybe that's a good thing. But just heaps of brick and ruin, and when was the Bronx supposed to be thriving? And I know what the narrative tells us, of course, but when we look at this, I mean, weeds and trees growing in the sidewalk, and just a part of town that's up for grabs. And while I was editing this video, I just wanted to show this map of golf courses, and it just really dawned on me that this is probably a good depiction of mud flood affected areas, although of course there are many more. And this is only the United States golf courses that are owned by the US government. And when we look at it with our eyes, as far as this map goes, these black flags more likely being cover-ups of various sites by the use of golf course. And here Andy Jackson shares with us, I visited the Halfmoon base site with my drone the past weekend. And very exciting. And let me just show you this footage. And this is my favorite part of this research, is this community that we have. And even though I'm stuck in this miserable town, research can continue. And this is a great example. I wasn't able to get over here, but here Andy has provided some excellent drone footage for us. And really, what I had noticed when they tore the structure apart in the last bit of the video I presented is how massive these were. I mean, you know, just at a glance with no reference, we would think that these columns were rather small. But in fact, they were massive, and they had to be loaded on a giant piece of heavy equipment and hauled off. And here we can get a great look at how this has absolutely solidified what was once probably metal, and this is the last metal one remaining. It's as if the heat had swelled the metal and everything had just kind of buckled from whatever took this structure down originally. And now this is in recent times, just tearing out these remaining columns. And really fascinating. I mean, just at a glance we would think it was stone if it wasn't for the rebar poking out. And rebar has been found in statues all over the place, in Rome and Greece. And not unusual, many of the oldest massive columns even show holes where the rebar would have passed through, and maybe it's just deteriorated in some cases. But this is an excellent piece of drone footage, and from all the pictures I'd looked at, I wasn't even able to notice this other column over here that he shows us, and I believe one more a little bit further away. And it seems to me as if this structure was not originally built right on the side of a cliff like this. I mean, especially in the 70s, does not look like 70s construction. It's so beaten and hammered in some parts that, again, it just resembles a natural stone, a fine line between the what seems like natural cliff and the remains of this structure, as we can see here. And they were telling us that this concrete slab was poured all the way back to the 18th green, but I don't think so. I mean, really, this drone footage is absolutely excellent. Here, really seeming like a Greco-Roman type column, even with the vertical lines running up and down. But I'm not sure. As we saw in the other column, there was some kind of a steel wrapped around it. But really, really remarkable. This is one that I had not seen. And again, the regularity of it, like it succumbed to heat. In some of the other photos I was showing in the past videos, they had just completely swelled out in certain spots, perhaps from high heat. And here, just fusing right into the shrubbery. And very interesting, unnoticeable from the top, and very exciting. It's one thing to discover these older buildings that have been repurposed, but to discover things like this, that don't fit into our narrative whatsoever. I mean, even the story that they give us, they were scrambling for a story, and we end up getting the story that this was constructed without a permit in the 1970s, and just ridiculous. Not sure why they decided to go that direction. They could have told us the Spanish built it, or someone in the 1900s. They seem to have no shame to attribute magnificent feats to people, primitive people, in the early 1900s, late 1800s, and even earlier. I mean, no shame. As if, we're just going to lap it up. And really, we have, and the masses do, until recently. But this is really cool. And if you remember in some of the pictures I was showing, you could see a passageway going into the side of the cliff. And I was really excited and hoping Andy would show a little glimpse of this, and sure enough he does here. Now we're going to get a little look. And of course, to the right here was where all the other columns were, really having kind of a star shape, perhaps being part of some star fort. I'm not sure. I mean, we have so little information about this. But here we go. We can see a column back here completely turned to stone and resembling anything natural. And now we can get a look inside here. So right along this column, we see what must have been some kind of beam going across right here, and a little opening up here at the top, and seeming very much as if this has just been filled in with dirt, and yet wanting to reveal itself. And you can tell that he wanted to get in a little closer, but I'm sure that it would have been a little risky with the drone. Definitely something to do in person, if it's allowable. Again, we saw that the Ritz was fined 1.6 million, I believe it was, for not allowing coastal access here when this is all public. So there's really no reason we shouldn't be able to explore this. And much does still remain to be investigated. So that's it. I think I'll just conclude with this. This has been a disastrous video, but I do hope in some way you enjoyed. So for now, have a blessed day, and please like, comment, and subscribe.